She just wanted a run to clear her mind. Fresh air, solitude, silence. But that night she found something she didn't expect. A stranger in the shadows. A familiar face. A phrase that pierced her chest like a blade. At first, it seemed like a mistake. Then, an annoyance. But it only took one detail, a forgotten scar, for everything to start unraveling. And then, what was merely a buried past turned into a present in combustion. Because there are truths that sleep but never die. And when they awaken, they change everything. Even who you are. Hello, my friends. I am Linda, and this is Linda Love Stories. I hope you enjoy this story. The night wind caressed Caroline's skin as she ran along the deserted sidewalk. Her sneakers beat rhythmically against the concrete, creating a melody that mingled with her measured breathing. At that moment, she felt free, as if she could leave behind the whirlwind of thoughts that pursued her. The vacation rental house was a few blocks away. She could still hear, like a distant echo, the laughter and stories shared around the fireplace with Noah's family. It had been a pleasant evening, but Caroline always needed these moments of solitude, a space of her own, where silence spoke louder than any conversation. The small coastal town went to sleep early. The lights of the houses were going out one by one as she enjoyed the last moments before returning. The starry sky served as her only companion, until she noticed a figure standing in the shadow of a light post. A tall man with broad shoulders and a rigid posture was staring at her intently. Caroline slowed her pace, feeling a shiver run down her spine. Something about that gaze disturbed her deeply. He took a hesitant step towards her, partially stepping out of the shadows, revealing a time-worn, angular face. "You look so much like her," he said with a choked voice, almost a whisper. "She disappeared years ago. I needed to make sure you weren't her again." Caroline halted, her heart pounding hard against her chest, not only from physical exertion but from the cold that spread throughout her body. The man's dark eyes seemed to search for something within her, as if they could reach corners even she herself didn't know. "I think you're confusing me with someone else," she managed to say, her throat suddenly dry. Before the man could respond, a familiar voice cut through the night. Noah appeared in the distance, calling his name. The man immediately stepped back, shaking his head as if trying to convince himself he was mistaken. "I'm sorry for the bother," he murmured, turning to leave. Caroline still managed to see the embroidered crest on the uniform he wore. Celestial Marble, a local factory. She watched his silhouette disappear into the darkness as Noah approached with hurried steps. "Is everything okay?" Noah asked, putting a protective arm around her shoulders. "Who was that man?" "No one," Caroline replied, forcing a smile. "Just a mistake." But throughout the walk back, she couldn't shake the feeling that the encounter had not been mere coincidence. Something in the stranger's words had awakened a dormant unease, as if he had touched on a door she had kept locked for a long time. That night, Caroline slept poorly. She dreamed of places she didn't recognize and faces she couldn't distinguish. When she woke up, she had already made a decision. The following morning, without telling anyone, she drove to the address indicated on the uniform. The marble factory was located on the outskirts of the city, a complex of red brick buildings with a tall chimney. She parked across the street and waited, watching the workers coming and going. Finally, she saw him arrive. Even from a distance, she recognized his posture. She took a deep breath, gathering courage, and walked towards him. The man spotted her when she was halfway and stopped, as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. "I couldn't stop thinking about what you said yesterday," Caroline began, when she was close enough to be heard without raising her voice. "Why do you think I look like someone you know?" He remained silent for long seconds, studying every detail of her face with an unsettling intensity. "My name is Mason," he finally said. "My wife disappeared 7 years ago. No trace, no clue. The police eventually closed the case." He swallowed hard before continuing. "And you? You are identical to her. Same eyes, same smile, Same way of tilting your head when you're confused. Caroline felt her stomach sink. There was something terribly familiar about his voice in the way he pronounced certain words. That's impossible, she replied, but her voice lacked the conviction she wished it had. Can I see your left shoulder? He asked, in an almost pleading tone. What? Of course not, she replied, irritated by the unexpected request. Why are you asking me this? Mason hesitated before explaining. My wife had a scar on her left shoulder. A childhood accident. If you don't have it, I'll know I'm completely mistaken. Caroline took a step back, feeling the blood freeze in her veins. She had the scar. The one that doctors could never fully explain. An accident, they said. But now that small mark on her skin seemed like a gateway to something larger, darker. I'm not who you think, she said, turning to leave. I'm sorry about your wife, but I can't help you. She returned to the car hurriedly, ignoring Mason's calls. All the way back, her mind was racing. 7 years ago. That's exactly when her life had begun. When she was found unconscious in another state, injured and with no memory. She spent months hospitalized, and when she was finally discharged, no memories surfaced. She started over. She met Noah, fell in love, and rebuilt a story with what she had, an emptiness in her past and love in her present. Upon arriving at the vacation house, she rushed to the bathroom and locked the door. With trembling fingers, she pulled aside the strap of her tank top and examined her left shoulder in the mirror. The scar was there, as it always had been. A thin, whitish line, almost like a chalk mark. Caroline sank to the floor, her back against the door. The truth knocked on the door, undeniable. And for the first time in years, she allowed herself to cry, not for what she had lost, but for what she might have to face. When Noah returned from the outing with the family, he found her sitting on the porch, gazing at the horizon with distant eyes. Did something happen? He asked, sitting down beside her. Caroline took a deep breath and told everything. The night meeting, the visit to the factory, the scar, the disturbing coincidences. She talked about the void from 7 years ago and how that stranger seemed to have answers that she maybe didn't want to hear. Noah listened in silence without interrupting her. When she finished, he held her hand firmly and simply asked, Do you want to get to know him better? Find out if he is telling the truth? Caroline nodded, grateful for the understanding. That same afternoon, Noah accompanied her to the local police station. If there was a chance, no matter how small, to discover her original identity, they needed to do it the right way. The first conversations were over the phone. Mason spoke with a deep, hesitant voice, marked by a mixture of relief and unease. He recounted how they had met in college, married young, worked together at his family's marble business. How she had simply disappeared one autumn morning, leaving behind only unanswered questions. The police began a detailed investigation. They compared fingerprints, DNA tests, old medical records. A week later, the confirmation came. Caroline was indeed Elise Mitchell, missing for 7 years. Her biological mother, a woman with greying hair and arthritic, gnarled hands, still lived in the same house by the sea. Upon learning of the discovery, she wanted to see her immediately. I never lost hope, the woman said, hugging Caroline tightly when they finally met. I always knew that one day you would return. Caroline spent a few days at the house of the woman who had given her life. The connection was confusing, painful, filled with emotions she still didn't know how to name. The house was full of photographs of her at different ages, an entire life she did not recognize. She looked at those images as if they were of a stranger, someone who shared her face but not her memories. Mason would visit her frequently, bringing photo albums, telling stories of their past together. Her mother didn't like him. She always found an excuse to leave the room when he arrived. There's something behind that quiet charm, she confided to Caroline one night while they were tidying up the kitchen. I never liked the way he looked at you, as if you were a possession. Caroline started to notice unsettling patterns. Mason was polite, attentive, but there was something calculated in his gestures. He would observe her rather than look at her, as if studying a complex equation. At times he would hold her wrist for too long, with a firmness that bordered on discomfort. Over time, small fragments of the past began to emerge. At first, they were vague sensations, a familiar smell, a song that stirred an inexplicable emotion, the sound of waves crashing on the beach. Then, more vivid images appeared. One night, while watching the moon reflected in the guest room window, the first flash of memory came. Her crying, locked in a room she didn't recognize. Another came the next day, a heated argument in a garage, Mason shouting, her threatening to reveal something. And then, the complete memory surged like a devastating wave. The office of the company where they worked. Open drawers, scattered documents. She had discovered something. False records, suspicious transactions, an elaborate money laundering scheme involving the marble factory. When she confronted Mason, she saw his face change. He pushed her against the wall, said no one would believe her, that if necessary he would do whatever needed to be done. The scar on her shoulder wasn't from a childhood accident. It was the price for not staying silent. That same night Caroline called Noah. Her voice trembled as she recounted what she had discovered. "I need you here," she said. "I don't feel safe." The memories kept flooding in. The morning after the first vivid nightmare, her screaming for help in a dark room, hands tied, and Mason's voice whispering threats in her ear. Caroline couldn't get up. Her body felt heavy, as if the truth wanted to sink her into the mattress. When she finally went downstairs, she found her mother in the kitchen, making tea. "You look pale," the woman said, watching her with concern. "Nightmares again?" Caroline nodded, sitting at the table with her hands clasped, trembling. They remained silent for a while until the words began to spill out in disorder, like a bucket of water being flipped all at once. "I remember documents, misappropriations, a fake account. I confronted him, and he hurt me, Mum. He pushed me. He said he would destroy me if I told anyone." The spoon in her mother's hand stopped stirring. Her eyes, once brimming with tenderness, hardened like stone. "Are you sure?" "I have," Caroline replied, almost in a whisper. "It's not just a dream. I feel it. I know it. He tried to silence me, to erase me." The lady held her daughter's hands tightly, her gnarled fingers squeezing with more strength than Caroline thought possible. "Then report it." "But what if they don't believe me? What if they think it's just reconstructed memories, false recollections?" The mother took a deep breath. "You are no longer the lost girl from 7 years ago. You have a voice now. There are people who believe in you, and most importantly, you have the truth. Don't let fear be the continuation of the crime he started. He wanted you silenced once. Don't let him succeed again." Caroline felt her eyes fill with tears. For the first time she saw in her mother not just tenderness, but courage. And she understood that sometimes the strength to face the past begins with the silent support of someone who always waited for her return, and who now pushed her forward, toward justice. It was there, in front of a forgotten cup of tea on the table, that she decided she would no longer run from the truth. Noah arrived the next morning. Together they went to the police station. Caroline recounted everything, with details that only someone who had lived through the events could know. At first the officer seemed skeptical. It was a cold case, a suspicious memory surfacing suddenly. "I understand your concern," he said, with the patience of someone who had seen similar situations before. "But we need concrete evidence." Noah did not give up. With the help of a lawyer friend, they managed to get a warrant to examine the financial records of Mason's company. What they found was enough to start a formal investigation. Forged documents, witnesses silenced with threats, million-dollar transfers to offshore accounts. Each piece of the puzzle fit precisely with Caroline's recovered memories. Mason was arrested while trying to leave the country. In court, During one of the preliminary hearings, he looked directly at her. There was no longer the mask of concern, only an icy hatred that made Caroline shudder. He muttered something that chilled her to the bone. "This isn't over. I've disappeared with you once. If necessary, I'll do it again." With the trial underway and Mason awaiting sentencing, Caroline returned to the city where she had built her new life with Noah. The house they shared seemed different now, a more valuable refuge after everything she had faced. She looked at Noah as if it were the first time, that man who loved her when she had no name, no past, who stood by her side when the ground disappeared beneath her feet, who never questioned her worth for what she couldn't remember. "Do you still want to marry me?" she asked one night as they watched the stars in the garden. "Even knowing that I'm another person?" Noah smiled, taking her hands in his. "You are not someone else. You're just more complete now. And yes, I want to marry you, today, tomorrow, and in any life we might have." They married in a simple garden, surrounded only by those who truly knew how to love. Caroline's mother came, bringing a pearl necklace she had kept for 7 years. There was no lavish celebration, just sincere vows and a silent sunset that seemed to bless the new beginning. Today, Caroline still runs at night. But she doesn't run to forget. She runs to remember everything she has overcome. When she passes by the scar in the mirror, she doesn't see it as a mark of pain, but as proof of survival. Life has taught her that we are not defined by what was taken from us, but by what we choose to build, even after the fall. That true love is not shaken by the shadows of the past, and that sometimes it takes courage not to remember, but not to forget. During her night runs, she sometimes feels a shiver, as if she is being watched. She knows that Mason will eventually serve his sentence and be released, but she doesn't live in fear, because she understands that there are visible scars, like the one on her shoulder, and invisible ones, like those we carry in our souls. And it is the invisible ones that truly matter, those that make us stronger, more compassionate, more human. With each step against the asphalt, Caroline celebrates not only who she was, or who she is, but who she chooses to be with each new dawn. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 5 to show how much you liked it. Also, watch the video that is now appearing on your screen. See you soon.